everyone. It is time for our guest, and we got a good guest in the building, y'all. We got Matt. He is my best friend's partner. He's a funny dude. Today is all about talking about our biracial background, so I wanted to bring Matt on the show so we can discuss it thoroughly. He's got a nice story. He's got a good, solid story. And we both have that similarities, like I'm half Asian, half black. He's half white, half black. So, Matt, I'm going to do my AKAs real quick. You ready?
I'm ready.
This
I'm
is
freestyling
Kimbo.
these though. I'm freestyling them for you.
You gonna freestyle? Okay, wait,
I'm
hold on. Here we go.
freestyling
Here we
them
go.
for you.
We about to start this, guys. This is Kimbo, aka the Blasian sensation, aka the traveling chafing queen, aka Kimbolina, aka daughter of Pajinat, aka slayer of poles, aka mother of Georgie, aka sexy stir fry, aka Captain Planet. She's a hero, gonna take pollution down to zero, aka Miss Pussy Control, aka the hustling hussy, aka twerking on your daddy's couch, aka yes, my middle name is spelled wrong, and aka Kimbo of all trades.
AKA is Mateo, the mulatto magnet. Mateo de la Fuentes, the mulatto muffin muncher. Mateo de la
Hey!
Fuentes, the couch cruncher. And all of those beautiful, beautiful things. Bring it to me, Kimbo. Let's go.
Yes!
For the freestyle, off the top.
I know.
I freestyle. Maybe at the end, I'll spit some bars for you. I might just, I might try to get signed real quick.
Okay, wait. What the fuck was that? What was it? Did you say Mateo the carpet muncher? What'd you say?
I said carpet cruncher. I was trying to, play on words, like.
Yes, that is so good.
Yeah,
Oh my God,
I
man.
tried. I couldn't be
You
like you,
guys.
the Blasian Caucasian and sensation and all of those things. I can't be like you, but I tried my best.
Hey, you know what? Hey, that was pretty good for Off the Dome. That was pretty good. I'll give it to you.
I tried. Like I said, I got 16 at the end of this.
Okay,
if I can
I
get
got
16.
you. I got you.
So
Well, Matt, introduce yourself to our audience today.
All right, my name is Matt Ewing, reigning from the great Queen City, Cincinnati, Ohio. Met Kim through my partner Yesenia, so she's become one of my good friends over the past few years. So I'm very excited, very proud of what you've been doing.
Thanks, Matt.
Your creativity is never ceases to amaze. So I'm just very proud and very, very happy to contribute when possible. So
Thanks, Matt. We've had our share of differences. Shall we share with the audience?
Yeah, that's water under the bridge. That's water under
this
the
nigga
bridge.
got so mad at me because I called him a fucking hotep one time, and he straight up got so mad.
I did. You know what? Well, first I didn't even know what it was, so I was kind of like, oh, I was in my bag, like
Hotep is.
Man, I feel like I don't know. I didn't know what the word was, and I kind of had like an idea of what it was, and I actually brought that up to a friend.
What they say?
He said I got some hotep tendencies, but
you got some hotep tendencies, man.
But I can see that. I can see I have a little bit of tendency, but it's all good. We
it makes you who you are. Yeah,
it does, and sometimes I gotta realize that like my trolling kind of has no ends, so I don't know where like how I actually feel sometimes starts and where I'm trolling begins, right? It's kind of like these two things collide, and I don't, I got to work on that. I've actually had that called out by some other friends. So
okay, yeah. I'm here for the self-awareness.
Yeah,
shout out to your friends.
I think well, I think some part of it is they just be hating,
Oh, okay, that's what it is. They be hating.
Yeah,
okay.
A lot of times people just be hating, and I'm from Cincinnati, like where.
That's right.
We cap. That's kind of our love language. So like sometimes it can be misconstrued as hating or whatever. But it's a love language to us, and I try to communicate that with Sid. But just being self-aware has been something that in 2020 you've had more time maybe to yourself and to your thoughts than maybe previous years. So kind of just become aware of those and doing some self-reflection has been huge in 2020 just to keep that head.
That's what's
place.
up.
Yeah.
So this year's been super like reflective for you.
I mean, yeah, that's definitely something that like probably in years past hasn't been a big part of just like who I am. One, I generally tend to be extroverted, so I'm generally kind of always into something, being entertained, and not a lot of time with my thoughts. Plus, having a partner, having some dogs. I don't have kids yet, but but having things that help occupy some of your time and then going to work, right? Doing all of that stuff you kind of sometimes you get lost and you don't get to kind of have that reflection. But 2020, I mean, we were forced
Oh yeah.
to slow down, right?
Oh yeah.
And you know, so yeah, so it's been a year of reflecting, some self travel, some, you know, just a lot of time
Mm-hmm.
alone, and is you know, it's been good. And like that's one of the things I was talking about this today, how just 2020 just really forced us to kind of stop, you know, and reassess. And like for me, and I'm starting to get off on a little tangent, but you know,
You're
you know,
fine. No, this is
you know,
good. Go ahead, spill it.
but these are things that are on my thoughts, you know, so I'm gonna get them out while I got a little audience. But
No, for sure.
it really made you feel like Mother Earth really this year just made us like stop, and it really showed like how not to be like pessimistic, but how irrelevant, like, right, we are, right, and how like literally
Right.
we can plan all these things, but we really don't have even control over the ability to go outside, right? Like Mother Nature
Literally.
in a winter can take basically say like, hey guys, you can't do shit, right? So it,
No.
you know, so I think that, and then again, just a lot of time alone, and being more introverted and introspective
Mm-hmm.
during this time. So, you know, it's definitely 2020 has had a lot of just straight shittiness to it, right? I mean, for lack of a
Yeah.
better
It
word,
has.
but like
Yeah.
I think you can find some bright things, like, and maybe some things that maybe you did a little different, or you know, you're kind of forced to just slow down and regroup. That 2020 you wouldn't have had without a year as crazy and as wild and unpredictable as this.
Oh yeah. There's no way like many of us would have sat down with our feelings, really, really actually had to deal with a lot of the issues we had to deal with unless the world shut down, because a lot of us have coping mechanisms where we just, get ourselves busy, whether it be work or going out with our friends or going at the
Right,
gym or just, this really
right,
was just like sit your ass at home. Like you said, Mother Earth said to sit your ass at home and think about your shit and work
right,
on it.
right,
And if you don't, then you really just not gonna have you're not gonna be successful in this life. You really have to like reassess, think about your priorities. And I'm proud, like Matt, like you've been with my best friend for like 5 years now, and I
yeah.
love you guys I love you guys together. I love Sen. She's my best friend. I love that bitch. She crazy as all hell because she's listen, I got a Puerto Rican, you got a Puerto Rican. Well, not even that bitch she claims to be Puerto Rican full blood, but she's a
Right,
quarter Puerto Rican, but that Puerto
right,
Rican be strong, yo.
right,
They
right.
be
She could
strong,
have
but
been
I,
on this biracial conversation too, you
that's
know, shit,
right.
you
That's
know.
right. With her multicultural ass,
Right, right,
But
right.
like, no, for real. Like, they're very passionate people. So I appreciate what a good man you are to my girl.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you like really reassessing and like looking at yourself, because that's really tough. And especially with a culture that like has this whole toxic masculinity that's just, that's just like amplified. Men have to be tough. They can't be pussies. They can't cry. They can't deal with their emotions. Like, fuck all that bullshit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we are human beings. And I think that I think we need to like fuck those gender roles, fuck that bullshit. So I'm proud of you, and I'm happy that you're, you know,
Right.
becoming more, the Matt that I feel like, it's just you're just flourishing. I think that's great.
Thank
You
you.
got that
Thank
that
you.
curls be popping.
You
Look at
know,
Matt's got his
you know
curls
what I'm saying?
popping.
You
He
know,
got
I
that Puerto
do.
Rican curl going
I ain't got
on.
my arch. My arch is a little weak right now. You know, usually I'd be a
Oh, you
little
got to
more
get the
arched up.
A. If you meet with a
You
Puerto
know,
Rican woman, you got to get that
hey,
arch
you know, but
together.
I'm you know, calculated risk. I can only go and jeopardize myself at the barbershop ever so often. So, you
Right,
know,
right.
I went like 8 months or 7 months, something crazy before I
Right.
got
Going
these
to the
cuts. It
barbershop.
was like I had a, you know, I was out there. I should have got that shit braided, but
You
you know,
should have.
no,
I've never seen your. Oh my god. I wonder. Have you
I
ever
don't
had your hair
know.
braided before?
Yeah, yeah. Back in the day, I
Okay.
had when I man, back in high school, college, like
Okay.
first year of college, I had it. It was probably like, man, it was like this. It was big as
Okay.
hell. Yeah. So you know,
If you guys are joining us on the visuals on YouTube, you'll see Matt's curls for the
but
girls.
now I'm about to get that. You know, I'm gonna get the taper. You know what I'm saying? To get the
Yeah,
braids on top. You
that grown
know.
man look,
Yeah, I'm gonna get that.
or
I'm gonna
that
get
fuck
that.
boy look.
You know, you said it, not me. That's what, if that's what y'all call it. You know what I'm saying?
Yo,
I,
you
I'm
guys,
a man of the Lord. You know, I don't do all of that f boy stuff. So you know, hey,
yo, yo, you guys, like Senya was like, "Oh, Matt's gonna get his hair cut." Like she sent us photos to the group, and I'm like, "Bitch, why are you trying to make your man look like a fuckboy? What is
right.
this? What are these
She wanted
fuckboy
that.
photos?"
right. Hey,
Yo, that's my girl. That's my
you
girl.
should try to, relive them glory days, baby. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Right?
right. She be
So,
forgetting though. But like Matt, like I mean, like okay, let's go back to the topic in a sense. Me and you are both biracial, so that's what today's topic is about, guys. So me and Matt are gonna dive in more so on our backgrounds. We haven't had a discussion on the show yet about being biracial. Me and Matt both identify very much as Black. We are very proud to be Black people, but at the same time, we don't. We also can't ignore the other side of us. My mother being from Thailand, so I am half Asian, and Matt is his mother is from his mother is white, so she's Caucasian. So now, Matt, one of the first questions I wanted to talk about was our identification. So, like, I don't know about you, but growing up for me as a biracial girl, if you look at me right off the bat, obviously I have the dark, I got the brown skin, I got the curly hair, but obviously my my facial features and everything, I look like more Black in a sense, like people don't really necessarily know I'm Asian off the bat. So I identified more so on the Black side, even though I love and identify myself too as Asian 100%. But when people look at me, I look Black. So for you, was that the same going up when you were like growing up in Cincinnati? By the way, Matt's from Cincinnati, Ohio, guys. He is not
yeah,
from Chicago. I'm from Chicago. So it is going to be interesting to see the differences of growing up, from Ohio and then from
right,
Chicago. So how was
right.
that? How was your experience with that?
So, I mean, honestly, like I identify 100% as, Black. Like obviously I'm not 100% Black, but just all my experiences, all the people that I interacted with, like all the family members that I know, it's all Black, right? So like,
Hmm.
but uniquely, I have a white mom, right, who was, a single mother raising two biracial kids, right? So, for us, I mean, we always knew, right, that like, that your mom was white. Um, but kind of coming up in Cincinnati, people know that you're biracial if you look like me. Like,
Okay.
so it was never really like I was in this zone where somebody didn't know what I was. They always knew because in Cincinnati, you really only have Black people and white people. So people that come out looking like me, you already know. So like everybody, people knew. Plus, I had the really curly hair.
Right.
So people knew, and I had a white mom. So obviously people knew. I think one of the things that was really unique in Cincinnati is just the way that like what I experienced as like a youth was kind of more impactful than what I identified as or what I felt about like being biracial. For example, I would and I'll kind of like translate this, to neighborhoods in Chicago so you can kind of get a scope of kind of the dynamics. So, I grew up in a neighborhood, everybody was Black, middle, not lower middle class, but somewhere between middle and lower middle class. But then I would go out to my godmother's house, which would be the equivalent of like a Naperville, right?
Okay.
And
Okay.
so I would be out there, and I would be the only person that's even half Black, right? But then I
So
would
you would
leave,
go to the suburbs, like a
go to the
suburb.
suburbs, right? And
Got you.
so like there, like that's kind of really where, and I'm kind of long-windedly saying this to get kind of back to your point about identification, was like I never felt comfortable there, right? Like I always felt like an outcast, even though like I did, I was half white, all these kids were half white, we couldn't have been any different. But then I would go from Naperville, my mother would pick me up she would work out at a school out in Naperville and then take me to the equivalent of a Capri Green, like seriously, like a 99%, it was a ghetto, it was the
And if you
hood.
guys aren't familiar with like Cabrini Green, that's more so like the projects, so to
Right,
speak. So predominantly Black community, a
right.
bit poverty stricken, that type of
Poverty
stuff.
strict.
Yeah.
And so, I would go there. That's where I played football from, age 5 to 12 or 13. And I always felt more comfortable there, even though the conditions what I was in were not nearly as nice as where I was out there. But I felt more comfortable here. And so like I always thought that like growing up, like, it was never a sense of, not that white people didn't accept me. It was just like I didn't belong, even though I
Hmm.
was half white, right? So I don't know
Right.
if that's something that you experienced, like with your Thai side or anything
Mm-hmm.
like that. But that was kind of my experience, and what ultimately it almost like when the question is, one of the questions is, do I feel more black, or do I feel less black by being biracial?
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily think I do, because that's, in my heart, that's where I'm the most comfortable.
Yeah,
So
I think I can definitely relate to you saying that because it's like, even though to the, like you said, it was obvious that you were biracial, but you just kind of felt a sense of like being more comfortable
right,
with your black side or the black community, so to speak. My upbringing was a little bit, I mean, when I grew up in the suburbs, I'm from the suburbs of Chicago, but like when I grew up, it was a mix of like Hispanic, mostly Hispanic and white, and there were some black people. But the thing was about me, because I was a suburban girl with a biracial suburban girl, with good, quote unquote, good hair. Um, the black community, especially the black girls, weren't very nice to me growing up. And most so, the whole like, I remember particularly like when I went to my auntie's house and she braided my hair in these long braids. I had the big old beads, I had the beads at the bottom and everything, Matt, but like my hair was down past my ass and I was about maybe like 11. But like, you could tell at the root like that was my hair. And so I remember particularly like some black girl like came up to me and was like, that's your hair? And I was just like, yeah. And mind you, like when I grew up in a very mixed neighborhood. So for me, it was just like, yeah, of course it's my hair.
right,
I wasn't particularly like, oh, this ain't no weave or whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? And she just kind of like rolled her eyes at me and was just kind of like, ugh, okay. And I was just like, what the fuck did I do?
right,
And then
right,
my dad had to explain to me, like, basically, like, he basically told me, he was like, listen, you know, because I was like, why is it that the black girls or black people, like, they don't seem to like me very much? I would always be so confused about that, And he would be like, that's because, the way you were raised. He's like, to them, you talk white. You know what I'm
right,
saying? And the thing is, my dad was very much black. He was a black man from Southside Chicago. But he also always, I hate this because I don't know. This is one of those things, Matt, right? Like, to the testiness of like in the black community, it's like the whole talking black, talking white, code switching, that whole thing.
right,
It's like, in my house, my dad spoke English, and for him, that was like, I'm speaking English. Like I don't, he doesn't like, he never liked to whole like put the whole like stigmas of like the whole, I'm gonna talk with the Ebonics or I'm gonna do this, da 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 da.
right,
He just said, he's like, I talk, I'm in America, I talk English or I speak English, whatever. So he never liked to put a label on things. But if you wanted to put labels on things, we talked white compared to like, you know, in
right.
the more in the in the black community. So I got a lot of hate. I got a lot of hate from the black community in the beginning when I was young, and then also having an Asian mom walking around, that was confusing to people. Like they pretty much was just like, who's this? Is this your nanny?
Right.
My mama, when she would be taking me and my little brother. My little brother is also biracial. He's black and Thai as well. So yeah, so I mean, but I feel like that's just because of the upbringing I had. You know what I
Right.
mean? Whereas if I was born on the west side of Chicago, though, I was born on the west side of Chicago, but when I was very young, like one, we moved to the suburbs. So I feel
Right.
like maybe in a sense, if I grew up on the west side of Chicago, I probably would be a completely different woman. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Who's to
Absolutely.
say?
You're the
You know?
block of you can tell a lot about the zip code somebody's born in, right? I mean, just think
Right.
about like that is like that's a fact, right? You can almost like paint the trajectory in a lot of cases of the type of life somebody will have based on, the zip code that they were raised in, which is just kind of crazy to
Do you
even
think
like
though
wrap
that
your
you're a
head
product
around.
of your environment, Matt? Do you think that you would be a
Well,
product of your environment?
well, of course, like I think, and of course, I think there's definitely like when it comes to nature or nurture,
Yeah.
I'm definitely nurture, right? So
Okay.
for me, here's kind of where like my experience, like I grew up, coming home. My mom she was a theater major and an English teacher for Cincinnati Public Schools,
Oh, really?
predominantly
She's a
black.
theater major? Okay.
Right. So she's like, she was never gonna make no bread for real. You know what I'm saying? So like, my upbringing, I had the addiction issues in the family, so like it was like a lot of times there was like tough situations like I would be in, right? Like, around places and environments, and it wasn't always sure where the next kind of like meal was going to come from, right? Like you never knew. We were always stretched incredibly thin. But where I was able to get like where I really truly believe that my life kind of took a different route when it could have gone totally different was one, my mother's incredibly educated,
Mm-hmm.
and she did value school, right?
Mm.
So like when the fact that she made school a priority, right? She made sure to keep me involved in like sports and away from things that I could have easily. Now again, it's Cincinnati. The violence is not like Chicago, but you could still easily get wrapped up into some stuff, or so. But and I also had my godmother, who was the one that would send me out to that camp, all the way out in the equivalent of
Mm.
Naperville, right? So like I
Mm-hmm.
had these core, like these two pillars of white women, right? Like
Mm.
that kind of like were the two things that really kept me out of like going down a path that some of my other friends and didn't have. And I'm definitely not saying it's because they were white women that they did it, but they were just in different positions. Like one, my mom was incredibly smart. Like
Right.
like she valued education. There's definitely going to be some just innate you know stuff that I have in me that could that does handle school and learning maybe better than certain. I do have capacity, probably more than certain other people, but I also had this you know even with all the chaos and loudness and noise going on around my life, I still had those consistent things that was like, okay, you need to go to school. She started paying for for private school, right? And that's really changed my life, but not everybody had that opportunity, right? So
So
like
you went to private school and for what, grade school, high school?
so seventh and eighth grade, I switched to private school because basically I was in a public school. I was getting in trouble. I was in school suspension all the time,
Okay.
trying to maybe, and maybe if I were to think back on it, like there were traumas that I had, right, that I probably didn't cope with, and I was lashing out maybe because my mom was always working, trying to provide. I had
Right.
issues with narcotics in my immediate household, right? So like I had all of these reasons to kind of lash out, and maybe I used them as an excuse to really lash out. But like I said, like if I didn't have the stability, which I saw some of my friends, they didn't have. Maybe they had a mother who was starting to date another man because their husband left, right? So they were more focused on that, maybe that person, or
Mm-hmm.
even in some cases narcotics, when they didn't have that staple at home that was able to like nourish them,
Mm.
and to making the right decisions. So like I was in a situation where it really could have gone very different, but the fact that you could have just one or two people and a good coach here and there that could really just change the trajectory of your life, and that was like very much what happened to me, and kind of in my upbringing, um in
Well, I
Cincinnati.
mean, it sounds, well, not only was your mother highly, educated and, was education was super important to her, but she kind of was forced, like, she was put in a very difficult situation, correct? When she had you, so to speak,
Right,
right?
right.
So you talk a lot about how your mother raised you and how your mother was very involved in your life. Now, there was a reason for that, right? So like what happened? Why was your father in the picture? What
Well,
happened with your dad's side of the family?
it was so really my mom's side of the family. My father's side was really just there was my father was on that shit. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
like, that was his priority. And as a kid, I couldn't understand the addiction, right? Like I couldn't understand that, right? So I hated that, and I resented him for that for a long time.
Mhm.
Um,
Was it alcohol or was it
it
drugs?
was everything,
Okay.
everything. Like I don't.
Mhm.
It wasn't like no weed. It wasn't,
Right,
it
right,
was
right.
alcohol would have been the baseline, right?
Okay,
So,
okay.
but my mother's side, essentially they grew up in Virginia. She grew up in,
Okay.
in Virginia, um, and they wasn't on board with a biracial kid, right? So like they've
Right.
pretty much, and this probably goes back to even my identifications, like my whole white side of my family essentially disowned me. Like I don't know anybody right? Like I don't
Right.
know a name, or she has sisters, she has nephews, she has,
Really?
aunts. I couldn't, like, if they walked in here right now, I wouldn't
Really?
ever, so like that to me was like, damn, like my own
Mm.
family, they white, they don't want me. Fuck that. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like at least,
Right.
I was in the, I was always around, my black side, right? So they really are the ones that like took me in, right? Like it was never like, oh, you the biracial kid.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It was never like
Right.
that. You know what I'm saying? It was,
Right.
but the white side, it was, I think I met my mom's dad once,
Okay.
twice maybe. He
Your
did.
grandfather? Your grandfather?
My mom's dad. She,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
no, we don't do
Mhm.
that.
Okay.
Um, yeah, man. So it was like for me, like that just like at such a early age, like I can honestly like thinking in life, like the racism or like
Mhm.
like not feeling a part of something, it was never from the black side. Like it always the racism to me always came from the white side.
Right,
Always.
right. Because you were a young kid, right? And you just, I mean, the fact that your mom's family didn't want to like have a relationship with you, I'm sure it was really tough for a kid too, right?
Right. And I think, and that, the older you get, right? Like I think part of it is you realize that like, you know, everybody's got a side of the story, right? So like
Hmm.
while I understand like and I do know enough that if my grandfather, or I'll call him that. That's probably
Hmm.
honestly, I don't know if I've ever called him that in my life. To
Really?
be completely honest with you, but like I don't know how much was maybe my mom being dramatic, right? Like
Mm.
I've always like had this question, like, man, was they really like that, or like could my mom have been a little bit dramatic with that, right? And,
Uh-huh.
and, and the older you get, it's like, okay, like granted, yes, like if they wanted a relationship, they could have reached out. Like
Right.
her mother passed away before I was born, right? So like she was never involved, and
Okay.
my father's mom was passed away before I was born, so I never had a grandmother. But she always likes to think that like if her mom had been around, she doesn't think it would have gone that way. So
Okay.
I know, but
Oh, so you think that if your mother's mom,
she thinks that.
she
She
thinks
thinks
that?
that,
Okay.
yeah. Like, but
She
she
thinks that
died.
you
She
would have had
died.
a relationship with your white side more?
She thinks that. Like, I mean, I
Okay.
don't know. I don't know her, right? Like,
Right,
I
exactly.
never,
Exactly.
I didn't know anything about her. So,
I can relate to that because my father is 18 years older than my mom.
hmm
So if you guys can do
wow,
the math, yeah.
right.
My black daddy was 18 years old and my Asian mama was, just being born. So that's how if you want to talk about the
And
differences of
it's weird.
age.
It's weird if you look at it that way.
I
Let's
know.
do let's do
I
like
know.
30, 36 and 18 or something. I
Right.
don't
They
know.
didn't
That's
meet at that age, obviously. My
right.
dad was her boss and she was my dad was a supervisor at this envelope company, and at the time he needed a strong Asian. He wanted a strong because with him, when he would have a Thai woman that worked at the job, they were always hardworking. So he
Right.
told the other Asian woman, the other Thai lady, like, give me another Thai strong one. And she brought my mama. And then obviously they got together. They had me and they had my little brother. But when it came to that, fuck, what the fuck was I saying? See, that's the weed. That's the weed that does it to you.
That's
Because
my mama's
you were talking
tequila.
about your history with your grandparents. There you go. There you go.
Yeah, like, well,
Grandparents.
yeah, my
Right.
grandmother's, what would have
Right.
been
Right.
grandmother's,
Right.
yeah.
Because I also, because of the age difference, I never met my black grandparents, like my dad's mom and dad, because they were long past because
hmm
of the significant age difference. Never met any of them. And then my mom's parents, so my Asian grandparents, I only met one because my grandfather died already before I was born. So one of them, I only met my grandmother in Thailand, and that was like one time. But I couldn't communicate with her because she was Thai and I couldn't speak Thai. So it was tough. So I can relate to the whole like not really knowing your grandparents thing. That's kind of what I was getting at. But I mean, so when it came to, you said you had a relationship with your black side of the family, obviously,
Right.
because
Right.
that's how you raised. But
hmm
you didn't, did you have a relationship with your father, or no? Did you see
I
him?
did.
Did
He
you
was
talk to
around.
him?
He was around
Okay.
until, I mean, he was around. Like he wasn't. but again, like I don't know if you've ever been around somebody or like had a true relationship with anybody that's for real on that, on heavy stuff, you know, the
Well,
memories, the
my partner,
memories.
my partner is, you know, sober
r-
right now because he's an alcoholic. So,
right, right,
um,
and it's
I can
it,
relate.
it
Hmm.
it's it's like one of those things, and when you're a kid, right, like, you
Hmm.
know when your friends start to learn about this stuff, right, it
Hmm.
gets really hard, right, like
Yeah.
when you're 7 or 8 and your friends don't know, but then you grow up a little bit. Now your friend's brother is serving him, right? You know what I mean? Like, or
Right.
like
Right.
it creates a whole nother thing. So like I said, I resented him. He got really sick. I mean, shit, man. If there's one thing though, like, when he was a good guy, like he was a good guy. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
his heart was good. He just he was an addict.
He was an
And,
addict. Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
like you don't realize that when you're that young, that like,
Yeah.
this isn't something that
Choosing
they're
necessarily.
not really
Yeah. It's
choosing
hard.
to do this, right? Like
Right.
it is
Right.
one of those things. Like it is a mental illness. Like it's
Right.
classified
100%.
as that.
Yeah.
So I think there was a time when my mom ultimately got divorced from him. Um, and he pretty much went on the nosedive at that point. You know what I mean? Like he was, in terms of like, there's again one thing that I hope I got from this guy. I mean, like, dude, the guy had to have 10 lives. Like seriously, like
Really? Yeah.
he was an infantry in Vietnam.
Oh my God.
Right.
Really?
So like, yeah. So there is a conspiracy that I do have a part Vietnamese sister out there somewhere.
Shut the
So
fuck.
I mean, he was so uh,
Hey, listen, I have 7 half siblings,
right.
or I think, right?
Wow.
Yeah. No,
Right.
I even like I could have more than that. You know what I'm saying?
That's
So
what I'm
I
saying.
can relate.
And so he was he was an addict for a long time.
Hmm.
Shoot, man, freaking. I don't even. They both have passed away since. But
Right.
my
God rest their
brothers,
souls.
God bless their souls. My father's passed away about 10 years ago, and then my my his first wife, my brother's mother, my oldest brother and sister's mothers, um, she shot him in the neck back in the day. He died.
What?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Dead ass, dead ass. He died with a bullet in his neck. Like
Wait.
my
Who
brother, my brother's mother, my
your
oldest brother. I have two.
oldest
I have yeah,
brother on your
right.
black side?
Yeah, yeah. Him and my dad and his wife had a kid. That was my brother Thomas Jr. That's my father's name.
Okay.
She shot him in the neck.
Good
He
Lord.
died.
Okay.
He died with a bullet in his neck. Like they
Oh
couldn't
my
take it
God.
out. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know how many strokes, how many heart attacks. Like, I mean, like the
Wow.
man should have been. His resilience was incredible.
Mhm. Mhm.
But and that was after a lifetime of, you know, being on
Yeah.
that. So like
Yeah.
family, and I always thought growing up, like you can hear these two sides. Like I tell you about my mom, like the white side, how they don't rock with me, right? Then the
Mhm.
dysfunction and the addiction on this other side, and really like growing up, man, I thought I had the shittiest family. I thought I was like, I thought it was only me. You know what I mean? And I think
Okay.
like when you get older, it's like when you start to
Mhm.
meet different people, it's like, man, like a lot of these other people had shitty experiences as well. You
Right.
can't use it as an excuse, which is kind of one of the things that like I'm still, as part of my self-awareness, is like, not kind of trying to draw on this. Well, I have a reason to be angry. I have a reason to
Right.
be this
Right.
or that, and it's like kind
Right.
of like checking some of that emotion. So
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things I feel like we can just use this as like a defense mechanism, right? If we're like not
exactly,
wanting to deal with who we are as people, because the way we were raised and the people we had in our lives, I think it did structure us in that sense. Like there's a lot of good qualities that I can thank my parents, but then there's also the negative qualities that I could also
absolutely,
thank them too, right?
absolutely,
So we have to cut the stick, we have to cut the, what is the word, like the cycle, break the cycle, and that makes us have to do a little bit more work, so to speak. But you know I mean, I'm a first, like my mother was born in Thailand, so I'm first generation for her. my father was born in Mississippi, you know, but my father, I mean, I don't know, you said your father was in the army, right? He
Right.
fought with the Vietnam War.
Yep.
My father actually, because, you know, obviously during that time, segregation and racism was so heavy, right? I mean, the whites only water
Yeah,
fountains,
that'd
the
be
whites only
crazy, man.
bathrooms.
That'd be
I
crazy.
mean, that shit was what my father grew up with. So when they tried to enlist him in the draft, he said, go fuck yourself.
Right.
And he said he went to jail.
Right.
My father chose to go to jail instead of going to the army because he also knew, being a black man, he would be in the front lines,
Yeah.
you know what I'm
The
saying?
lot,
Like they will put him right in the front to be the fucking, you know, to
and
be
then you
shot
still
up.
come back here and can't even fucking get no
Can't
water, right? You got to
right,
go.
right.
It's the
Right.
thought
So he
about
said,
that.
go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Right. He was like, man, fuck you. Like, I gotta go out there and fight for this country. They don't give a fuck about me.
Right.
So he went to jail. He went to jail for about 3 years.
Damn.
And yeah, my father he wasn't with the shit. So, you know, but he also had like stories, you know what I'm saying? So like
Right.
but my father also had a history of um uh, um substance abuse, so to speak. Yeah, I don't know the details because when I met my father, or when I really kind of got cognizant, you know, growing up with him, he was always sick. He was always like, um, he had diabetes, he had heart, you know, high blood pressure, all that. You know, so my father already had this, you know, a lot of issues, so to speak, with his health. So I never
Right.
really saw the like substance abuse and everything like that. He already stopped all that, but I think that kind of got him to where he was with his health because of his, you know, his life.
For
Substance
sure.
abuse, he wasn't eating
Definitely
right.
didn't help, right? I
It didn't
mean,
help. Right, exactly. But he also taught me the good things about, you know, like saving your money and being responsible and all that shit, you know, but it's like, but then you see the other qualities. And the thing is, like, we also have to remember, like you said, your father had 10 lives, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't even imagine how it was growing up in the 40s, you know what I'm saying?
right.
1940s, where you can't, you know what I'm saying? Where you literally, you know, my dad knew Emmett Till.
That's
My
crazy.
father went to his funeral. He saw him in his coffin. So if you guys don't know who Emmett Till is, Emmett Till was that young. I think he was 14, right? Was he 14? He was very
He
young.
was a kid,
He was
14,
a kid.
15.
Yeah, he was a teenage boy, and he was that. The story was, it's a very famous story in the South, you know, in Mississippi, that were in the South. Yeah, because that's where my dad grew up, in Jackson, Mississippi, and where he was killed and hung, dragged through the streets. I mean, just mutilated this poor boy because he whistled at a white woman. Mind you, he supposedly
Supposedly
whistled
whistled.
at a white woman, and these white people just mutilated his body. I mean, when my father told me the story of when they all went to see him, because his mother wanted the black community to see him, like my father said, he looked like a not human. He said he looked just mutilated, like beyond human, like he just looked like an alien or some
Yeah.
monster, he said. And I was just like, I remember that story and I just be like, yo, like that's wild, you know? And it just kind of puts you in perspective, like the fact that
That could
my
have happened.
father, right. My father, God rest his soul, has passed away. He passed away, um, shit, maybe 5 years now, I guess. It's been a while now. Like it's
2016.
was it?
Yeah. Because
Because
you
I
were
came
over
back
in
from
Australia.
Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, man, you remember that. That's
I
amazing.
remember everything.
Yeah, that's great. You got a good memory. Because I
Yeah.
mean, like, I don't remember. I'm a type of person. That's another one of my things. I'll probably like block it off, or I don't want to deal with it, so I won't remember things like that. But like I know he passed away in July. But it was 2016, so yeah, that's about 4 years ago
Yeah.
now. And yeah, I mean, he also got to experience, though, before he passed away, a black president. So that was huge to him in a sense, because the way he, you know, his experience growing up as a kid with racism and segregation
That
to having a
was.
fucking black president, it's like, yo,
It is
you know?
crazy. It is crazy that when he was growing up, you're right, biracial kids, right? You couldn't even
Oh,
like, right,
yeah.
like you would literally be like, like that shit is crazy to me,
Yeah.
that to
Me and you,
think that
Matt, we would have been.
so long ago, like not even 50
Yeah.
years ago, right? Like this shit
That
would have
wasn't even
been
that long ago, guys. Like,
like
yeah, I want to
it's
just say,
crazy.
like, if
It's
white
crazy.
people, anybody that, like, obviously my audience probably isn't racist white people, but, you know, I'm just saying it to them anyways. You guys don't even realize that this wasn't very long ago. Like, this, my father, it was 1943, he was born. So, like, do the math. That was like less than 80 years ago. This shit was popping. This shit was, so that's why I can't even stand the racist white people that are just like, why are you guys still complaining? Da, 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 da. Like, just like, shut up already. Like, you guys are good now. It's like, nah,
Nah.
no. It's
But
like,
it's like, it's one of those things when I think about like, how do you resolve, right? Like
uh-huh.
it's such like it's such a complex issue, right? And a lot of it is like, how do you judge what's in a person's like thought process? Like, how do you, like, just roll it back, right? For these cops, right? It's like,
Mhm.
in their mind, like, how do you like evaluate what they're actually thinking when they, do something to a black person, right? Like, how do you stop some of these things that are so subjective? Like, you
Mhm.
can't really like quantify, or you can't really like isolate it out. Like, you just can't, because it's hard to really know what's going on in somebody's thought process or their
Mhm.
logic, right? So like, when you think about racism, and like, I am one of those people that call me just an ultimate pessimist. Like, I don't think that we're ever going to get to a point where race isn't probably one of the more primary things you're going to like
Mhm.
have to navigate in your life, right? Like, it's always going to be an issue for people that look like you and me. Like, I don't ever think we get to a point where that's not applicable. I don't
Right.
think.
Right. I mean, and that's a beautiful segue too, Matt, because you just said people that look like me and you, right?
Hmm.
But if you want to get really down to it, Matt, we are both biracial. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we have
Right.
some privileges that I would say that our other brothers and sisters that are not biracial like us don't have. Mind
Right.
you, yourself, you are a man. I'm not going to say your job because I don't want to, get you caught up or anything, but you are a man in the corporate world, right? You got a corporate ass job and you look the way you do. Mind you, Matt, if y'all are looking at the visuals, Matt is
Mhm.
very much like a man of color, but he don't really. When I first met you, I thought you were like Puerto Rican. Puerto Rican. I thought you were Puerto Rican because
Then you see
I
me
didn't know, but
dancing, then you like, nah, he definitely ain't. When you see me dancing, you're
right,
like, nah, he's not
nah,
Puerto
nah, nah, nah,
Rican. He just don't,
maybe
nope.
not. But you did. You looked
I
hella Puerto
try.
Rican
I
because you
try.
got the like, lighter skin, the curly hair. But when you talk to Matt, you're like, oh, that's a nigga, like right, straight up.
Right. It-
But I mean, even you though, you have some privileges, would you say? Being a light skinned black man in the corporate world, like what are some racism that you experience, but also what is some things maybe you've experienced that maybe your dark skinned friends have experienced complete like different to you? Like what is the comparison? Like what have you seen?
I think honestly, when it comes to like racism in like the corporate space, like, I can honestly say, like, I can't really think of anything that's like, come out, right, where like I can be like, damn, like, that was like kind of racist, like, I can't really think. But I have been in situations where, um somebody will say something like, oh, you ain't really black, like, or like, you know what I mean, like, you don't even sound like a black, like, I've heard those things
Mm,
before, right? And like, I'm very conscious of, like, I code switch. Like, I will absolutely code switch, right? Like, most of the clients that I deal with,
mhm,
a lot of them are white Southerners,
mhm.
a lot of times. So I am definitely conscious of like the tone of how I talk. So I think that like
Can you explain what code switching is if people don't know what that is?
so basically, like, there's a way that I'm gonna talk to Kim, right? And there's words that I'm gonna use when I talk to Kim, that when I'm in a corporate world, and it almost gets back to, again, this is maybe getting back to your initial point, one of those cautious words is sounding white, right? Like, it's kind of like removing some of the
Yeah,
bass from your voice, right? And like
right.
talking like, maybe enunciate more than what you might typically do. And for me, again, like, I'm very cautious. I don't know if we were recording when this was coming on. Like, the way that I think that I sound and the way that I actually sound are very different. So when like
Right.
I'm gonna hear this, right, and I'm just gonna I it's weird to me to hear yourself talk, right? Like, because you think you sound one way, and then when you hear it play back. But in the workplace, like, I definitely code switch it. I don't know if it's something that I have to do, but
But you
I'm
just do
also
it. You
but you
just
do it because
yeah.
like maybe I expect that, maybe some of my own assumptions or on my own projections that I have on like the people that I'm dealing with, like that's what they want to hear. Maybe they'll take me this way if I sound like this versus like maybe how I would naturally sound. And I always try to like explain this to like people that I work with, like, and white people, like, you don't realize what it's like at times when you got to come into work and like be on all the time, right? Like you can
Mhm.
come in, you don't have to like change the words you use or like
No, I
enunciate things.
wouldn't.
Like you don't understand that sometimes that shit can be draining, right? Like because
Oh,
you
it's
have to be
acting.
on, you have to be
It's
on
acting.
all the time, right? And it's
Yes.
so I would think that that's like, one of those things. But from me, my standpoint, like I've had conversations. Like I was actually at an offsite for a job, my previous job, and there was a question that came up around like it was like we were doing like these pillars of like what the organization stood for, right? So there was like six pillars, and one of them was diversity, and lo and behold, the one black guy in the entire firm, the entire 200 plus person firm was me. The only there was
Wow.
there was like a black guy in IT, right? There was like
Oh, well, there's always a nigga in IT.
right. There was a black guy. He was cool. He was in New York, and we used to always talk
Right,
about hip hop. Like he was from Brooklyn,
right.
like So we would when I'd be out visiting him in New York, like on site, we would always chill. But it was and he was like he didn't really code switch either. Like so he
Oh, okay, okay. So he was
yeah,
a
like
nigga nigga
so yeah,
in
yeah. So
IT.
we could kind of like we can open it up a little bit.
Right, right.
Um, but it was just me, and like I looked around and I said, I mean, when you talk about diversity, I like what you guys have started to do and trying to like classify diversity as like this diversity of thought, right? Because
Yeah.
you weren't able to really like diversify the people that work here, your
Mhm.
workforce. So now what you try to do is take a cop out. Well, really, we want to have diversity of thought, and like
Mhm.
I think that was like a cop out because basically, you for whatever reason, either your approach or your desire or your interview process,
Mhm.
you weren't attracting people that look anything other than Asian girl,
Mhm.
white guy. I mean, that was
Mhm.
like pretty much that was like pretty and like when I say Asian, I would include like Indian and
Yeah.
like Chinese, Japanese. Like it was pretty
Mhm.
much like predominantly Asian women, white men. So like those were
And
like
this is like
really
the
the
finance world, right?
this
Like
is in the
this is
finance consulting
money.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
like um that was like something that like I don't even know if it was like I think the code switching is probably and just kind of not seeing people in your office or people that are senior in this company
Mhm.
look like you. It's like, and like when I had that conversation, I was like, I look around, it's like, well, what is my opportunity here? There's not anybody that on the senior level, senior management level, at the partner level, CFO level
Mhm.
that looks like me. So like,
Mhm.
what's my what's my long term potential here? Like you've shown that like even bringing in people at a senior level, like there's certainly qualified people.
Right.
Like that
We
that's
know that.
just right.
Yeah,
Like
we know.
so my racism will be more around just like being in environments where nobody looks like you, which is kind of weird.
So
Yeah.
lack thereof, just the lack of
I
diverse,
would
lack
even
of black
it
people,
would
lack
be
of
like the non-existent. It wouldn't
right,
even be.
right,
It's not even like
right,
lack. It's like you're not even trying, right? Like you don't
right,
even
right.
right. So like, but like in terms
Well,
of like feeling like I had to, like now kind of getting back to some of your initial stuff. I do have friends, and one of my good friends created this. I could drop a link in it
yeah, we'll
when
put it
this
in
is
the show
done. But
notes.
it was like some of the things you have to navigate as being a black person at work.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
it was like, for example, there was a balance, it was an obstacle course, and it was like a balance beam. And on one side of the balance beam, it was like, angry black guy, right? And then on the other side, it was like lazy black guy or something like that. And it was basically like if you were just like an introverted black person, you were either came off as the angry black guy, right? Or you were lazy and naive. And it was just like some of those things that like people that, you know, that work in these spaces that are predominantly white,
Mm-hmm.
might have had the experience. Like I said, I just haven't necessarily on a work level had to really endure that. Like I
Okay.
said, but I'll
I
drop you
mean,
a link on something like that. It was really interesting to
yeah, I
think
would love
about
that.
it, from that perspective.
Yeah, I would love the link. So you could pretty much say that like maybe your privilege looking the way you do is just being able to get the job that you have. Like the fact that like you said there was no other black people in that level where you were at. Like when
Right.
like do you think they would hire a dark-skinned black man
I
in
think
that sense?
I think
Dark-skinned black woman?
I think I think I don't know if my like in the and with my last company, because we were acquired. So the first person that actually like, hired me was like very he actually was he helped like the Carol Robertson Student for like Education Network here in Chicago. He was a white guy in his 50s, but he's very like in tune. And Carol Robertson, they do a lot of work. Actually, that's who I'll plug after this. If you want to donate to Carol
Oh, for
Robinson.
sure. Yeah.
Carol Robinson was one of the backstory about the company was like, or the school. It was basically one of the girls that died in the church bombing.
Mm.
Her name was Carol Robinson. So they started this school in Chicago, but he sat on the board and he was like very influential white guy. So like for him, I don't think that like that particular job um, would have made a difference, because once I got in the door, I was fine. Now, what I will say is, because the qualifications will speak for themselves. What I will say is my mom was intentional in giving me a name, a very like, you know,
Right. That's
very
a
like
whole nother topic right
you
there,
right, like
Matt.
that's a whole like that was like something that
Yeah.
and think about this. Think about like how your mind has to work, or how like, even like on it or realistic you have to be. I have a white mother, right?
Mhm.
Comes from money.
Mhm.
Um, thought far enough ahead to be like, well, I got to name you a name. So when you grow up, when you go to college, somebody can't look at your name and be like, I'm not even gonna invite this person for an interview. Like my
Oh, for
name is very
sure.
like, and so like for me, once I get in there, I think, you know, I'll be fine, right?
Mhm.
But like I think one of the hardest parts, and it's statistically proven, that if your name is something that is not as like, you know,
Was if it was ethnic or whatever, quote
right,
unquote.
if it was ethnic, right, like
Right.
you could have the exact same credentials that you might not even get in the door.
No, that's been proven. Like
That's what I'm saying. So
there's been
like,
statistic, there's been like, like there's been like people have like actually proven this throughout the years. I mean, I can 100% relate where you're coming from, Matt, because I have a white ass fucking name too. You know
right,
what I'm saying?
right,
Let's just be real. Like I have a white name. My name is Kimberly Davis. Like so in a sense, like I was always able to at least like for this, that's I guess part of my privilege, right? I was always at least able to get the phone interview, so to speak, right?
right.
Because the resume,
Then you could code
right?
switch,
Right. Then you code
and then
switch
you don't even
on
know
the
it till I.
phone, right? Hi, my name is Hi. Yes, totally. Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, completely. Yeah, you put on that accent, you code
Hmm.
switch, you
Hmm.
get your foot in the door, and then they can't really like once they actually meet you in person and they
Right,
see who they're hiring,
right,
then they have to really think like, okay, well, this person does have all the credentials. We do need to, what is the word? Affirmative, action. We need to hire diversity in the company. So maybe it'll be okay. And I can actually, say this too, because I recently just got hired into a huge cannabis company. So shout out to me. I'm really excited to work with cannabis. I'm not going to shout out the company, obviously, but
mhm,
I just got hired into this cannabis company, and I read an article recently stating that Illinois in the cannabis industry actually failed their diversity hires. Yeah. So they were saying that like there was a quota they needed to fill when it came to the hiring processes of the diversity in the cannabis industry here in Illinois, and they failed that.
right.
So when I had my interview, I had like a round of like Zoom interviews, a group interview, and it was me and it was three other white dudes. So
Right. Wasn't surprised.
I was
Wasn't
like,
surprised.
listen, if you don't hire the one black woman in this group,
Right.
come on
Right.
now,
Right.
come
I
on now. So
think
I kind of felt like, all right, they gonna give
yeah.
me this. They have
I
to give me this.
I think if you looked at any industry, you're probably gonna see not any, but most of them are gonna fail their affirmative action or their diversity numbers. Like,
Right. Right.
one, it's either, it's either too aggressive, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, maybe that's a factor. Maybe, like, you're not really trying. Maybe it's an industry, like, for example, finance. It's interesting, and even tech. Like, if you read like those numbers on, like, the number of diversity in those roles, the industry itself is just like, right, it's just overwhelmingly dominated by white men, right? Like,
Mhm.
so, like, some industries just in themselves are gonna or lend themselves to like really really hard diversity, like accountability or fairness in that standpoint. But like, a lot of times it's just, you got to be intentional. For example, the Wells Fargo, kind of pivoting back to finance out of tech, like, he basically said we failed our diversity numbers
Mhm.
because there's not enough qualified candidates, which is
That's
just
bullshit.
like, it's crazy, because like, a lot of times in the workplace, you'll look like, there's a guy that I saw recently at a forum, and his role, I mean, like, this guy had, super sharp guy, man, like, Ivy League guy, like MBA, worked on like Obama's, like,
Mm.
like, economic council, whatever that's called, like, very very like, and his role was like similar to some white guy that like graduated from like IU, right? You know what I mean? And like,
Right.
and
Right.
like 82, and then just kind of like, you know, it was just like, it's just sometimes like, just the lens that like black people have to like overcome, on top of all the
Mhm.
other things that we have to overcome,
Right.
just to be on like equal, just to be a parallel, right? And
Mhm.
it's just like, never more like in the workspace did I ever feel like, damn, like, you really got to do a lot, like, to be a black person and kind of rise this high.
Mhm.
And it was like one of those things that was really eye opening for me.
So you never really so basically though you would say you've been pretty lucky, like you've never experienced blatant racism to your
No,
face in the
no,
workspace. Okay, you're,
no.
you're lucky
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I have. I mean, like, there's always the microaggressions. Like that's a thing. Like that white people could be. They always throw the microaggressions at you, right? Well, I guess I don't know. I mean, I don't think I never was called like a nigger to my face at work or anything like that. But it was just like I've gotten fired from jobs because I spoke up. Like it was one of those like where I said something to like the boss, like, well, how come so and so, she white, doesn't get the same, she over here because like they loved her, they gave her all the privileges, how come so and so doesn't have to blah 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 blah, she don't get her hours cut. Why? How come it's only me, And they just said, oh, really, black bitch, you don't like that? Okay, fired my ass. You know what I'm saying? So things like that has happened to me. But I mean, I will say though that I'm very well aware. Let's just be real. Like, let's just not. I'm very cognizant, very well aware that I'm a light skinned biracial black woman, and society, if they do want to accept a black person in society, they will accept a person that looks like me more so than like my dark skinned sister that like has curlier hair. Maybe she rocks her fro. Maybe she rocks her
right.
natural hair too. So I'm very cognizant of that. And so I want to make sure that we're being completely transparent and saying that I acknowledge that even there is privileges, even in the black community, like there's like colorism within our own community, right?
Well, yeah.
Like I think it sounds to me that you've been pretty lucky when it comes to like your upbringings. Like you never really experienced racism on the black side, but I have.
Well,
Have you experienced racism on the black side?
nah, like, I could honestly say, because like, outside of like, oh, the light skin jokes, right? I mean,
Hmm.
like, but that's
Right, but
just that's just
yeah.
that ain't really, I don't really see, like, nobody was ever like, I never had that. My mom would be like, literally this, because she was older when she had me. She was,
Hmm.
36 when she had me, so she was
Okay.
older, you
Okay.
know, in the hood with all these, but they all showed her love. Like even her, they showed her,
Right.
you
Well,
know,
that's beautiful.
right? Like she, you know,
I'm wondering if she had that baby here in Chicago, if she would have the same experience.
she,
So.
she I don't, you know, I don't know.
If
Like
she had Matt, in Chicago, maybe on the west side or the south side of Chicago, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Because
but
I was raised in the suburbs, so you know
what
what I'm
I
saying.
am, what I do think about though, when you think about like colorism, I think about my dating life
Yeah.
where like it's probably been easier for me to navigate my dating life because for example like I've literally never dated a white woman like
Right.
ever like I not once in my life have I like
And
dated a
that's
white
crazy
woman.
too, because usually they would say like men would like want to date a woman that kind of emulates their mother or like something like that. But you never really saw it that way, huh?
No, and I never really like dated like you know like black women either and I think why is because growing up in Cincinnati, right,
Hmm.
there's really there's only black, there's white, there's one little small pocket until now. There's a small pocket of
Yeah.
like Mexicans now, like or
Right.
coming up, but they lived in a very small, and they were like, you know, we say like they were Mexican, you know what I mean? Like you know they were like from Mexico and like they were
Hmm.
all together, like you know. So for me, it was always coming up like, well, would you know would you rather date a white girl? Would you rather date a black girl?
Hmm.
And I think like I got to the point where I was just like I ain't gonna date either one of them. So pretty much my date, like my dating history, pretty much was like you know all like Latina girls or Asian girls, like
Okay.
through like my pretty much you
Well,
know
that's
since
a perfect segue because I was like wondering, I was curious. I was like, now this is perfect because me and you, we're both biracial. We both are dating. We're both, our partners are both in the Latin community. They're both Hispanic.
Mhm.
Um, but I wanted to know what you thought when it came to like, the whole like black men only dating white women, so to speak, or like I mean, also too with you, you never dated black women, so it's like, why is that? Was it because black women didn't fuck with you, or is it just because you just didn't want to like go there
so
because
uh, so so like my what I tell myself and maybe like subconsciously what was going on was very different. But what I tell myself is I never wanted my kid to have to make that same decision, like to be forced in one way or the other, right? So if I say I dated a white woman, then my kid, and this is just goes to like some of like the psycho like weird shit that I be thinking about, but like I would think about like, oh well, my kid is gonna be 75% white and
mm,
25% black, right?
mhm,
Or vice versa. And so like that's what I tell myself. Just because I was like always asked that, but to be real, like I don't know, man. The rhythm, I just got more rhythm from like Latino women and Asian chicks. I don't even know
yeah,
what it, you know, like that was just really. And I think the Latina that makes a little more sense just because like you know I could you know people often think that I'm Latino,
mhm, mhm,
um, you know, so I don't know if that contributes, but yeah, man, like black girls and like white girls never I never felt like they was like really checking for me like that. But
right.
like, you know, some of my friends would tell you like, well, nigga, you wasn't checking for them like that. You know what I'm saying? So like, you
Uh-huh.
know, so like you find we go out to a bar, you find, you know, whatever bar you gonna find a Latina girl or the Asian girl. So like, you know,
Uh-huh.
you know, I don't know. And I grew up in Cincinnati, right? So like I left Cincinnati. I went to college, you know, did the college thing, but then I moved out to Boston and like now I'm out here, like I'm meeting like Vietnamese, you know, girls, like, you know, girls from Cambodia, like, you know,
Mhm,
Japan, China, like, you know, I'm
mhm,
meeting girls from Brazil, Venezuela, like, you know, Dominicans, like, because
mhm,
we didn't have that shit. Like, there were some Puerto Ricans in Ohio, but we didn't have all of that shit. Like, you know,
mm,
Honduran, right? You know, Belizean,
mhm,
like, you know, so you're
mhm,
meeting like all these things. It's just like the thing about like Boston is like it's segregated, like it's segregated, not like Chicago. Like I think Boston is more like racist. Like I don't think
I
you.
was gonna say, I'm like the way I view Boston is I think Boston people are supposed to be really racist, isn't that right? The
It's
white people,
just like,
especially
yeah,
in
well, it's
Boston.
just like that hard Irish, like, like that hard
Yeah.
Irish blood is different, but like there's just so much there. Like it's so much like diversity. Like it's a much more diverse
Okay.
like
I've
city
never
than
been.
than Chicago.
Okay.
Like the white people, like in Chicago, you'll get a little bit of crossover, like in where like black and white people like hang out. In Boston, it was like white people were here, black people,
Oh, it
converted
was
people.
really segregated.
I mean, like super, super gay. So
Okay.
not as segregated like by neighborhood as Chicago is,
Okay.
but definitely very much like seeing like a biracial couple in Boston was like it wasn't incredibly common.
It wasn't common.
Yeah, and maybe it was because of the time I was there. It was like 2008 to
Right.
2012. So like that's 12 years ago at this point, 13 years ago. So like things have
Right. Right.
changed, but nah, man, like I can't really like I literally got zero play from white women out in Boston. Like zero. Like
You're
like
like, I ain't checking for you. You ain't checking for me.
yeah. So I don't know, man,
we
but
we see each other.
yeah, but well, here's what I will say about like, obviously coming from a biracial, like love is love, right? Like I ain't gonna,
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
and everybody got a type. So like I'm not gonna like,
True.
like everybody got like their type, right? Like whether it's, whatever, you got some criteria that you've defined as your type.
Hmm.
What I will say is one thing that does get me a little like annoyed or is maybe like the fact that like people like those like a lot of times those people that only date like white women will be a lot tougher on a black woman, right? Like, well,
Mm.
if I'm gonna date a black woman, then she gotta be this, she gotta be this, she gotta be this,
Right.
she gotta
Yeah.
have. But then it'd be like a white woman, well, shit,
She basic as all hell.
she good head though. Like I'd be like, come on, man, like those, like that's kind of one of those things that for me,
Right. The standards are very
it's like
tiered.
you gotta, like this lady look like your mama. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like she, and you gonna sit here and be.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where I kind of get. That's where I can get a little frustration. But yo, if you
Hmm.
got a type, if you like what you like, you know,
Hmm.
that I obviously as a I want the whole world to be biracial. So
Right. Right. Right.
maybe
We're a
maybe
little
we can.
biased.
We're a little biased, but
Right.
I think that's where kind of my like so it's not the fact of you dating that person, it's the fact that like maybe
Hmm.
you're giving them a pass or you're like setting an expectation for them that's much lower and you know what I mean? Like where like
Yeah.
if you're gonna date a black woman, she gotta be Holly Berry, right?
Right.
If it's gonna
Well,
be a
Holly Berry
white one,
biracial. She half
you know
white.
what I mean? Like whatever. You know what I'm talking about. But like if you want to date, if you're gonna date a white woman, it could be just like
Right.
a
Just a
regular
basic.
old white woman that's,
Yeah.
like
I feel you. I
you
feel
know what I mean? Like
that's always been like because I've always been like that's always kind of been in the like community where it's like you do see that like you see the black dude with the fat white woman driving him around, paying for everything, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just like why, but then like you see the niggas talking about like, yeah, but if she dark skinned, she better look like fucking like perfect, you know what I'm saying? She better be fucking
yeah, she
bad,
gotta look like Lupita. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like
She
you know what
better
I mean?
look like
Like just
Lupita, if she dark skinned, which is fucked up. So,
and it's
but again, it's like, so
but you
okay,
have a
so I
type,
can,
so I'm not gonna
right.
knock you for your type because I
It's
definitely have
tough.
a type, right? I
It's
definitely have
definitely
a
tough
type,
though. Yeah.
but just I don't know. I mean,
Right.
but a lot of times I think that has to do with like what they're comfortable with, right? Like, so if maybe if you grew up around in like a small neighborhood or in the suburbs where you were around all white people,
Right. Right.
like those are the girls you know how to talk to, right? Like those are who you
True.
know how that's how you feel comfortable. Like those that's who you feel comfortable talking to. So I think it's a lot of it is nurture, but again, I do get a little frustrated when it's like, yo, fam, like I just saw who you was dating like the other week.
Yeah.
Like I saw who you brought to the crib. Like you telling me that you
Right.
wouldn't fuck with her? Like, okay.
Listen, I mean, like, I 100% agree with you. Like, okay, and so me and you can also are very similar in that sense too. With like, I'm Black and Asian. I grew up with a lot of Hispanic. The Latin community was my people. You know, I know because of the way I grew up, not really fitting in with the Black people, not really fitting in with the Asian people, so to speak. Even though I've always had a token Asian friend, though. Shout out to my token Asian friend. I always did.
I have one Asian friend, Doug. I have one
Really?
Doug.
Oh yeah,
You,
yeah. I met
you
him.
know
I
Dougie.
love him. He's so
But
funny.
like outside of that, man, like
I haven't seen him in a while. I love him. But yeah, no, I mean that I've always had. But the thing is, like, I've always felt comfortable with Asian people. Like, throw me in like an Asian setting, I'm comfortable, fucking comfortable. Like,
right.
That's why I go to Asia so much. I've been to almost every country in Asia because I feel so fucking comfortable in that setting because it is a part of me. You know, mind you, they might not see me as a part of them. But when I was in Thailand and speaking Thai and everything like that, and I would tell them I was half Thai, oh, they were like, okay, cool, cool, cool. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that I haven't experienced racism. I have, you know what I'm saying? I have. I've experienced racism in that aspect. But when it came to dating for me, the same. I always went off of who was checking for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, who was checking for me, who I was comfortable with. And for me, you know, I also can say I look Puerto Rican, I look Dominican, I look, you know, Cuban or whatever to some people. I look mixed or whatever. Like they never really knew who I was. So like I always got play from Latin men, always. White men, I feel like a lot of like white men with me. I've had. I wouldn't say I never dated white men, like because I have. I wouldn't even call them dating, but you know, whatever. I've had my experience. I've had my what is it? Entanglements. I've had my. I've had some
that's a whole.
entanglements.
Oh, I got a
You know what
whole
I'm saying?
thought on that. I would be curious to know what you think about that because Sid and I broke that down quite a bit.
Oh, for real? Okay,
Yeah,
that might be a whole nother
yeah,
episode.
that's
Man.
yeah.
I don't know.
I'm
We could be
curious.
here
I'm
all
curious.
night. You know what I'm
Hey,
saying?
hey, I'm gonna just throw this
Anyway.
out there just in case you see this, Jada. If you want to entangle me, anytime. I will not claim.
Yo,
I
that
was.
family got the best genes because Jada and
Her
Gam
mama's
Gam,
so
shit.
cold, man.
No, Gam Gam she is bad, and that bitch is like what?
Is that her mama?
Gam Gam, yeah, that's her mom.
Man,
That's Jada's mom.
she got to be like
Bad.
70.
Oh, bad. She bad, yo.
Yeah,
She
she's
body
bad.
for days. I'm like,
But
this bitch
Jada,
looks so good.
if you watch it, I'll be your entanglement.
Shut up. Anyway, no, I had my entanglement with both white and black men, but like when it came to who I felt the most comfortable with and who I felt like just like on another level of just connection, right? Like I always did gear my that feeling always did feel like I always did kind of like tend to go with like Latin men. So like I've had long relationships. All my long standing relationships have been men of the Latin community. And that's just kind of happened. It like you said, it wasn't just a matter of like, you know, I was really open minded, you know what I'm saying? Like Asian men weren't giving me no play. Let's just be real. Asian men were never giving me play. And when I was in Japan too, they were looking good. I was like, okay, what's up, Japanese man? He was not looking at me. He was like,
they
oh,
wasn't going. They
right.
wasn't
And
going.
one of my homegirls, she told me she's half Japanese. She was like, girl, they looking at you. They just too scared. I'm like, okay, well, what's up, Japanese man? No, I'm just kidding. But I would be like, what's up? But no, for real though, like I never really, like you say, I never really got play from Asian men. Never got, I got like white. I felt like white men were intimidated by me. They didn't really want to come approach me. You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of how I felt when it came to that. Black men were always like, there was once, okay, so. And I like the thing, I've like I said, I've had my entanglements with some black men, but
I'm a virgin, so I don't even know what an entanglement really is.
Shut the fuck up. Anyway.
Can you, for the people at home that don't know, what's an entanglement?
Entanglement, you know. But when it came, so one dude, right? Because I go to I haven't been to him in a while, but I have a black barber, or he ain't even black. He's Puerto Rican, but I have a Puerto Rican barber that cuts my hair. I haven't been to him in a while because of the COVID or whatever, but I would go to the barbershop, and it's a barbershop. So there's, it's dudes. Like I would be the only chick sitting in there waiting to get my hair faded up. Like that's just how I was always, that's been like that for like 7 years. So, but one dude, this black guy, my barber told that nigga that I don't date black men. Wow. And so he felt some type of way about it. You know what I'm saying? And I don't blame him, but like because he was feeling me, right? That black dude, he was feeling me heavy, and like, Melo's like, nah, bro, nah. Oh, I just shout out I'm gonna have to blur his name out. I'm like, no, but he literally was like, nah, she ain't checking for you. She don't date black men, da, 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 da. And I was like, why'd you tell him that? That's not true. I wasn't really feeling him like that. That's just, it wasn't a black thing. It was, I wasn't feeling a him thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, and he felt some type of way. And he was just like, why don't you date black men? Da, 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 da. I'm like, nigga, what? Pause. Because who the fuck told you that? Because that's not true. And my thing is like, I just don't feel you like that, bro. Like, don't take it offensively, you know? So it's just one of those things where it's like, and I have to admit it. Like when I see, and mind you, I'm biracial. So I come from a mixed family. Like my daddy is black. My mama is Asian. My mama is Thai completely. So like, I can't even talk shit about that. Like that's, I didn't, whatever. But when I see couples like walking down the street and I see the token black dude with the white blonde hair, blue eyed girl, I'd be like,
I
I just
mean,
be like, my
but
nigga.
yeah, like I said, it's
But what am I
from
gonna say? You know what I'm saying? I don't know their situation, but it does give me pause. I'm like, ugh.
yeah,
Okay.
I think, but it's like I said, as a kid of biracial, obviously I support it.
Right,
Like I
right.
said,
I'm not gonna talk shit.
I do think that it's, and I can there's probably been people that like I've, in my narrow-mindedness and maybe having like what I wanted in a woman or like what I was looking for physically, like I might have, not, I might have missed out on opportunities of like women outside of that would have been white or black, that could have been a good match, right? So like you have to
Because of your
be
closed-mindedness or whatever.
right. It's like,
Yeah.
but again, I think everybody has the right. I think that everybody has the right to what they like. But like I said, I think who am I to tell somebody to love? But again,
Right.
it can be one of them things.
Love is love.
It's
Love
like
is
dog,
love.
like love is
Right.
love, love is
Right.
love.
Right.
So if
Yeah.
you're happy and you love that person, I mean, shit.
True.
My mom always said, and this kind of comes back to my mom always told me she didn't care, but the girl I brought home was purple. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? She didn't give a fuck, like as long as, because she knows what, like, even like having some biases or like
Yeah.
what somebody dating outside of your race or what kind of like impact that could have on your life. So like she was just hoping that like, as long as you're happy, like, I don't care if it's a damn alien. You know what I mean? So
Right, right, right. And you know what? And it's been tough because it's like I dated, like, for example, like you would think that us dating out like within people of color, right? Like we're dating Latin people. I've experienced racism with my like with Mexicans. Like I dated a Mexican guy in high school and his family fucking what didn't speak to me. Like his mother and father never spoke. Now mind you, like I mean like they couldn't speak the best English, but you just
right.
know when
If
people
they
just
even
don't
want
fuck
to
with
say
you.
hi, right,
They don't want to say hi.
right,
They never acknowledged me. You know what I'm saying? Like
right,
I just knew that she just was one of those, like, especially his mama. His mama
right,
just was like, "Oh, you with the black girl? Fuck that bitch." Like she just was not trying to check for me at all. And I felt bad. It felt horrible. And she's Mexican. I was like, "What the fuck is this?"
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, what the fuck is this? So I felt horrible when I would experience that racism from another marginalized group of people. Like that's for me, that always felt worse than the white people because for me, it's
It's like
expected
you
from
should
white
be able
people.
to relate. It's
Right.
like you,
I expect white people to be that way to me. Not every single one, but when I get it from white people, I'm just kind of like, okay, you one of them. All right,
right.
cool. But when I
Well,
get it from a marginalized group like myself, I'm just like, come on. Are you
right.
fucking kidding me? So that's why, like, Puerto Ricans, like, I've always felt comfortable with. Like, always, always, always. But more so because Puerto Ricans are black too. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I
So,
think that's one of those things that like I can, like, having dated like girls that are, either Asian or like predominantly Latina,
hmm
like if I show up to the cookout, like nobody even, it's not even gonna register into their head that like, oh, like she's with like
right.
a black guy, you know what I mean? So like even so then by the time they like get to know me, it's like, oh, I don't care what he is, he's a nice young man. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like so some of those like implicit biases that like those prejudices that you have,
hmm
you don't have those anymore, right? Like so like,
hmm
like I dated a girl, she was Puerto Rican. Like the first time I met like her family, her mom used to always tell the story like, oh, such and such, got a nice Puerto Rican guy now. And she's Puerto Rican.
You're
And like
like,
she was like, he's actually not Puerto Rican. She was like, oh, it doesn't matter. He looks like it. Right. So
right,
like,
right,
like so
right,
then
right.
like some of those biases. And then, I think some of just the stereotypes that they've built, right? They're so like ingrained in like your
Yeah.
mind, right? Like it's hard
Yeah.
to shake some of those biases that you might have about a black person based on,
Yeah.
what they're gonna show on the news, right? Like they show, when everybody's marching and shit, what do? They go show, the fucking niggas that's breaking into shit, right? You know what
True,
I mean?
true,
And
true.
again, not even really peeling back why these people might have even thought that was what,
Yeah.
that was a good thing to do, or that was like they putting them in that position. Not even like thinking of that. They're just looking at it like, well, hold on, like these niggas are just
Hmm.
tearing up their own shit, right? And like,
Right.
yeah, there is some of that, right? But I think a lot of it is they just push this narrative, right? And it becomes part of like what you are, right? Like
Yeah.
what you feel about somebody. And I was thinking, I was talking to somebody a couple weeks ago. I think it was, some of our friends, and I was like, I was thinking about it. The first like concept I had of like Mexicans was Speedy Gonzalez. Think about that. Think about
Really?
that. Think about that. Like the first time I think of is a little rat, right, running
Oh,
around
oh
saying
yeah.
andale, andale, right? Like just think
Yeah.
about like that's for the longest part of my life. That's what I
Right.
associated with Mexicans, right? So imagine if you're seeing that day in day out on movies and shows and
Right.
news, right? Like, how are you gonna feel about this group, right? That you might not even have ever even had real interaction with.
For sure, for sure. Well, I think that was the whole plan of like white supremacy and systematic racism, right? Is to make marginalized groups kind of feel this way about each other, right? Like
Right.
it's just some like it's all a part of it, I feel like, you know? And so I think having these conversations like me and you today and sharing this topic or sharing these discussions with our friends and family and getting the like I feel like one thing that really did help, I mean, God rest his soul, was like the whole George Floyd, when that kind of escalated and that became a huge topic during the pandemic, and we were in a quarantine state, so people were forced to kind of really think about it more so on another level. I feel like that kind of opened up a bigger dialogue with people. Like me personally, I was able to reach out to my Hispanic friend, my Latin friends, and discuss certain things where I felt like I necessarily wasn't really comfortable with talking about with them in the past. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
and even with my white shout out to my white sister-in-law. You know what I'm saying? Like she has a Asian, like she has an Asian baby girl, half Asian, half white, because I have a half brother that is Thai and we grew up together. So that's my brother. But she even was like, yo, like Kim, like I had no idea, tell like she wanted to know more and she wanted to understand where I was coming from. Whereas like in the past, those were things I never really necessarily wanted to kind of like talk about just because I didn't want to like go there, just because also she wasn't like racist or anything. It's just a matter of like just not being kind of on the same wavelength and not wanting to cause like, like an issue or whatever like that. You just kind of want to keep things nice and like level and just, getting along, whatever. You know how it is. You know how we kind of try to like tone things down around white people just to kind of make things comfortable, so to speak.
I
I
feel
mean,
like
I felt like
2020 has been one of them years like I don't tone it down at this point. Like I need to know where you stand, like
right,
across the
right. No,
board.
I appreciate that now.
Like
Yeah,
I need to
yeah.
know like where you stand because it's just one of them things like between election shit, right?
Mm.
Whatever that fucking dude's talking about, um, the Black Lives Matter, like how that's
Oh
been
yeah.
co-opted to certain shit, right? And it's just like, you know, it's been one of those years that like, honestly, I just need to know where you are because now to
Mm-hmm.
me it's like, look, like if you're against this, then like you're
You
against
can.
me at this point, right? Like it's like,
Right.
and
Hundred
so I
percent.
think I think like forcing those conversations this year is like, hey, I've lost friends and I'm okay with that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and one of those things about this year is it's like you've had so much shit in your face. Like people were, felt everybody was forced to pick a side
Mm-hmm.
in November, right? It was either on this side or that side, and then you
Right.
had to pick a side through all of these, other things. It's like, do you believe police brutality and systematic racism is a thing or not,
Mm-hmm.
right? And,
Mm-hmm.
and you know what I mean, like. So it was. I think 2020 was a year of making people kind of have uncomfortable conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, obviously keeping it out of your professional life, right? Because I don't want to lose my job because
Well, no, but even it did go with the like jobs. I mean, companies were stating their where they stood as well. I mean, didn't you see how when that time came out, people they were sending out emails. We stand with Black Lives Matter. We support Black Lives Matter. They were putting it on their
right.
walls and at their buildings and things like that because I think they needed to know. First of all, I think that was also because they didn't want to be looted.
Oh,
So
I was just talking. So I was
right.
my
They were
boy.
like,
I was
please
told you
don't loot us. We
I
support
went
affordable.
joyride today, and I saw a
Right.
sign, and I was like, "Yo, man, I can't help but to think like a lot of those people did that shit just because they
Right.
didn't want to,
They
you
didn't want to
know."
get
And
looted.
he was like, and his kind of response was like, it's better they put something up though.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
I
I mean, it was
appreciate
like,
that.
like,
Yeah.
and that was kind of his response was like, you're right. You can't tell the intent, but like, yeah, you're right. Like
Mhm.
at least they took some time to actually communicate that, regardless of how they actually feel.
Exactly. Because you know what? Because like the companies that were quiet, they were the one getting caught out. They were the ones getting called out because they were like, "Why are you so quiet? Why are you so quiet?" You know what I'm saying? And so like they had to like it was like it was one of those things where companies had to really like speak up or get called out for not speaking up.
But here's one of the things when you talk about these companies. I know we're getting off on a tangent, but like,
Also, okay.
you can cut some of this stuff out if you want
No,
to.
it's all good.
But for like black people, one of the things that I really like want us to do better at is like how committed are we to like unifying and doing something about some of these companies? Like like for example, if black people for just decided like, yo, I'm never buying Nikes, right? Like,
Oh my God,
you know what I'm
Nike would,
saying?
would go out of
Right, like
business.
how much could you? Because I think we had our chance with like the NFL a couple years ago, with like
True,
all of
true,
that shit. It's like, and
true.
what did we do? We was like, I'm not gonna watch that shit, but everybody ended up,
Mhm, mhm.
watching it, turning in like, well, shit, all right,
Right,
I'm just gonna watch my team. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I'm
right.
just gonna watch, and then like any of the power that we have collectively, like
Mhm.
we're
We are
not
the
willing
biggest
to.
consumers. Black people are the biggest consumers. We spend all the money. So it's like if we just could like focus in and really start to really support our people, our community, we can make a huge difference.
Yeah,
So but you know what though? But man, I feel like that is just goes so further. That goes and that dives into like white supremacy, systemic racism, like colorism. There's like so it's very
house
like it's
niggas versus.
yes,
Yeah,
it's very it goes really deep and so
it
it's not
does.
as simple as if okay, like let's just stop, I feel like cuz not every black person can thinks on the same wavelength too because of this. Like systemic racism and like they've literally like try to go infiltrate into in the community and segregate us and divide us. So it's like it's really tough to turn that off. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, like shit, like example, like my mama, for example, she's Asian though, but like it's like my mom didn't speak any English coming to America, and so for her, being the white gaze, I guess, if she's accepted with the white gaze, for her, like that was huge because it's like, okay, cool, like I'm accepted. She didn't, that's the reason she didn't teach us Thai growing up. Like I don't, my mother doesn't speak Thai to me. That's her first language. She don't speak Thai to me though. But because growing up, she wanted to make sure we assimilated into the culture
Right,
and we all like just fit in, and she didn't want to divide, she didn't want us to stand out any more than we already were. And I can't blame her because at the time that's kind of how the society was. Like
right.
now it's a bit different. Now it's like if you speak multiple languages and stuff, if you teach your kids
That's
another language,
dope.
it's fucking so dope and
Right,
it's gonna take you places that you'll never know. But back then, my mama was just like, listen, I just want to get y'all in this. Like, I just want
right,
to make y'all be
right.
okay. So I
Yeah,
can't, like that was tough, because like I would love to be, that's a life goal of mine is to be able to speak fluent Thai. I speak okay, but I can't even communicate with my own family members. That's just sad. You know what I'm saying? I want to be able to talk to my auntie and I can't.
it's so crazy that was like a thing, right? Like that I would, because maybe to them, you know, the world was a smaller place, right? Like it wasn't
Right.
like it, or maybe it was a bigger place, and I'm using it wrong, but they didn't even think like logically, like, oh well, she's gonna be able to leverage. She saw your language as a detriment
Yes.
versus, which is like, because who know, like shit. Even if how many people you think, black, Thai person can speak fluent Thai and could maybe sit in a creative space and be translating, right? Like think about just like an opportunity like that. Like
Right.
it's crazy that like you were forced like suppress like your culture, your language, right? Just to simulate because you wanted to fit in with
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's crazy to think about. And I don't speak any languages, but I would love my kid to definitely speak something, right? Like obviously
Yeah.
Spanish would be kind of the most logical, but
Hmm, hmm.
I think that's incredibly important. But Americans, we just for whatever
Yeah,
reason, man, we just like fuck that.
I know. I think it's, I mean, now going forward, I feel like, that's why we're having these conversations where we have to break that chain, we have to make a change. So I think it starts with just having these conversations. And like, and I just want to thank you, Matt, for sitting down with me and chatting with me and talking
Yeah, for
about this,
sure, for
because
sure.
this is something that I felt like me and you could really relate with, us with, being biracial and, experiencing our differences with racism, things like that. So I thought it would be a really good conversation to have.
Absolutely,
So I
absolutely,
appreciate you sitting down with me.
for
So
sure, for sure.
thank you, Matt. But before we do that, I want to switch over to the next segment. So let me go ahead. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. And we are back. All right, Matt. Guess what time it is? It's
What
time for
time is it?
our weekly segment, which is meditate, masturbate, or medicate. What do
Mm.
you choose to talk about for a little bit, Matt?
I mean, I think all three of them are things that like are important, right? It's sort of like it's almost like a holy trinity.
Right.
Um,
That's why I chose them.
but
We can be here all night if you choose all three, my nigga.
yeah, I think what I'm gonna do is I know we had a conversation. I might pivot. I might
That's
pivot. I want to go to what part of my 2021 is what
fine.
I want
Okay.
to kind of like focus on in 2021. I mean, obviously, masturbation, that's important. I mean, like obviously, yeah. Funny story about masturbation, and then I'll move on. So, one of my buddies,
Okay.
Scouts Honor Truth, this nigga told me that he busted his first nut eating pussy. I said, I don't even like.
Well, he's like never masturbated before?
That was the whole point. Now, he didn't beat his meat. Yeah,
What?
the first time he busted a nut, he was eating pussy.
How
So
old was
like
he?
I don't know, high school, 16, 17,
Oh.
whatever. But like not he didn't beat his meat in the bathroom to the Jet Beauty of the Week like every other kid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
you
who I'm just saying, like,
nasty.
I
I'm just
remember,
kidding.
like, hey, I remember the crazy thing about like masturbation is like it's so like readily available. It's like back in the days,
Right,
we
right.
growing up, like, yo, fam, like you had to like, where could you go? Like it was like internet wasn't a thing. Like
Yeah.
maybe your old maybe your boy's dad or your dad had a tape
Right.
that
Had the
wasn't
old
labeled. It
VHSs.
wasn't labeled. No, you
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah,
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 and
yeah.
you was like, and that's how you knew which one was it was like it wasn't
Right,
labeled.
right. Yo,
This one.
I had the fucking VHSs, yo. I had them too. We had like literally in grade school, no, middle school. This is how sick I was as a kid. I threw porn parties at my house. And
Wow.
I had, because my daddy had a little collection, this old school
Wow.
like
Y'all in
VHSs.
Chicago. Y'all in Chicago folk different,
Yeah,
man.
no,
Y'all grow
but
up
it was
fast.
just, it was not like men, like it was like my homegirls. We would come over and we would like watch porn together. I know, mad weird, and we would just watch it together and like make fun of it. Because I mean, back in the day, the porn was like on some like another like the '70s porn. I mean, these niggas was shoving their feet in these women, and I was like, what? And I'm young watching this, thinking this shit is normal. And I'm just like, wait a minute, this ain't normal. This ain't normal. This is
Yeah,
not.
none of
Wait a
that
minute.
shit's normal,
Not
man. Like even if you look at some
also
of it
not
now,
shaming,
it's
not
not
shaming,
normal.
but
It's
I'm
not
not shaming.
normal.
If that's what you into, if you want to shove your foot in your partner, do what you got to do as long as they're clean and your partner is
Shit,
consensual.
I need a pedicure before I do all that.
Can you
but
imagine? That's what I was fucking seeing when I
yeah,
was in like grade school. Oh, no, middle school, middle
that's
school.
weird, man. I at least waited to college till I got to the weird stuff.
But
Uh,
that's what we had. Like you said, that's what we had.
that's
It's
your
not like
dad
we
was
had
into.
a huge. We didn't have the internet, so
That's
I
what I'm
had,
saying. Like it's
my
crazy.
daddy's
Like
collection.
it's crazy. Like now you can just like go on your phone and get whatever your heart desires. Like
Whatever,
yeah,
whatever.
but that's crazy. And then but what I wanted to, but I did. I just thought that story was crazy because like he told me that and I couldn't. Like to this day, I'm like, so hold on, like you was just eating her out, like that's how like
Shout out to him, 'cause he a real one. He a real nigga because he fucking busted his nut from eating some pussy. That's right.
Again,
That's right.
again.
That's right.
I don't know. That should sound like some. That sound
He's a
like
real
cap.
nigga.
It sound like cap to me, but that
Man,
is
shut
what it
up.
is. But
Shut up.
what I really want to talk about is like one thing that I'm like really like gonna do in like 2020. Obviously, I don't smoke a lot of weed. I don't medicate too often.
Hmm.
Or do the pills or any of that kind of stuff. But
Right.
I think meditating and kind of just doing something like where like I'm blocking out like everything else for
Hmm.
10 or 15 minutes. And I think meditation to me can be in different ways. Like some people can just do yoga, or some people just kind of sit in a room and lay down and kind of like listen to the sounds. And
Hmm.
like I just need to like in 2021 find my version of meditation,
Okay.
whether it's like 15 minutes of like morning stretches when my phone is away, or the
Yeah.
TVs are off, like the whole house is sleep, right? Or even if it's just something where I'm taking that mindfulness to like kind of just like clear my head out, get the space that I need. And it could be active, it could be like some active, maybe I'll just go for a walk every, but something that I'm committing to really like be a little more spiritual, be a little more in touch with myself, and kind of continue as the world opens back up, right? And you start
Yeah.
to go outside again, you start to commute from work, you're hustle and bustle of back to life, like just making sure that you're finding time to kind of just get yourself 15 minutes to just be undisturbed. And it's something that like I don't do. Like
Hmm.
I try to be conscious of it to an extent, but it's just definitely something that's a huge focus of 2021 is kind of building that um, that meditation space and that meditation routine where um,
I think that'll be huge for you, Matt.
yeah.
Like
Well,
huge.
my girlfriend, so meditation, I gotta
Listen,
center
yes.
my chakras has gotta be
I was gonna say, I'm like, Matt, I
uh,
think that'll be huge for y'all because I was just telling, like, shout out to Sen, I love you so much, baby. But it's like one thing that I know about you both is that y'all are both hard headed. Y'all some hard-headed motherfuckers. So like for you, when y'all get to like, none of y'all want to back down. So it's gonna be one of those things where it just don't stop, right? But I feel like meditation, or even just saying like, I'm gonna give me 5 minutes, like just get away and just like, and then having that both be like both of you guys are both on the same level playing field. We're like, all right, my nigga need 5 minutes. All right, she needs 5 minutes. Cool. You know what I'm
right,
saying? Meditation I think will be huge. And like you said, it could be any form. It could be
right,
like, like my like for my partner, he just like lays, he's so weird. Like when I was, because I met him on set, and like he does this all the time when he's on set. Because I would see him, I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? He would just like lay on the floor anywhere. Like we'd be where anywhere. He would just lay on the floor and be spread out and close his eyes. And like that everybody would be just like, that would just be a thing he would do. And I'm like,
right.
what are you doing? He's like, I'm
Just
meditating. I'm like, okay.
yeah,
So that's what he would do. And so it would help him. So I'm happy that you're even wanting to do this. I think
right.
that's a huge step, is like something that you're trying to figure out. And I feel like that's something that is your journey. Like I can't say what I do will help you or is good for
Right,
you.
for
You
sure.
know what I'm saying? So I'm excited to see what what
Yeah,
kind of like routine you have, and what you kind of get into your meditative, state. Like I'm excited for you. Like whether
yeah.
it's like even whether if it's like listening to something, or like like I don't know, like who knows what it's gonna be for you.
I think it's gonna be like a guided stretching, like on a
Okay.
daily basis, with like some nice music and some nice ambient, noise and some ambient light.
You
Because
know
in
what?
2021, this is
Uh-huh.
my goal, and I'm gonna put it on wax, so I'm committed to it.
Okay.
I want to be able to sit crisscross applesauce. I cannot sit like, and obviously we
Oh,
don't
you
sit.
can't sit
Nope, I cannot do it.
cross-legged?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, I can't do it. I have my quads are too thick. I don't have
Listen,
enough.
hey, I'm thinking too, man. Come on now.
Hey,
I'm thick as fuck, but I can do it.
so that's my goal.
All
So
right.
that's
That's a
that's kind
goal.
of my
That's a
thing. Is like
goal.
just having some like nice like sonic music, and just not no yoga, no really like
Okay.
complex stretching, but
I
something
got something for you.
nice.
This is just a suggestion, and I really think you'll like it because it's not like that super cheesy like meditation music, like that like, and it's in it, none of that, but it's a vibe, yo. It's called Chilled Cow.
Okay.
Literally, it's called Chilled Cow. I think I mentioned this before in a past episode, but it's called Chilled Cow. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on YouTube. It is lo-fi hip hop.
Hmm.
It's lo-fi hip hop. So it's like a beat that it's all beats, but it's not quite your super, it's low. It's like a chilled version of hip hop. It's so dope. And sometimes I'll just put it
Shoot me.
on like, what was that?
I was gonna say, shoot me like some
Yeah.
links for that chilled cow.
I'll put this link in the show notes
Yeah.
again too. Also, guys, if you guys wanted to check it out, it's called
Hmm.
Chilled Cow. It's on Spotify, it's on YouTube, and it's like you can play. They have different playlists, and they even go live too. But you can have it for like hours. Like they just have like the music going for a long, long time. I think it's actually when I think about it, I think it might be on iTunes too, but I can't remember. But I'll put it in the show notes. But it's like a lo-fi. It's called lo-fi hip hop vibes, and it's dope, and it's just a vibe. And we sometimes will put it on while we're cleaning, or if I don't want to like have it be quiet, but I want something going on, it's like perfect. You just put that on and vibe out. So yeah, make me see what you think.
Yeah, yeah,
Let me know.
for sure. Like I
I'm
said,
I'm curious.
that's my goal. That's my goal. So I think, like I said, that's obviously I'm a masturbate when nature calls. I'm a medicate when when need to. But that's definitely the priority heading into
Okay,
2021.
I'm here for that. That's a
Yeah.
very good goal, man. I'm really excited for you. I think that'll be good for
I
you.
gotta get my chakras aligned. You know what
You
I'm
gotta
saying?
align the
Like,
motherfucking
yeah,
chakras.
yeah. And like I
Yeah,
said, man, I'm
you
so
gonna need to with
flexible.
my best friend.
Yeah, man. And this
Fucking
flexibility, man. It's I can't even touch my damn toes, man.
Oh man, you should totally get into some yoga.
Yeah,
Me and my
yeah.
partner do yoga. It's great. We love it. It's good.
That's 2021. That's on the
That's
roadmap for
what's up.
2021. So
Cute. Maybe you and Sen can do yoga together. I would love that.
yeah,
That'd be
we could
cute.
try. We could
That'd
try.
be
But
cute.
just getting her getting starting on time with her is gonna be the problem. I could have had my 30 minutes out the way by the time she get dressed and come work out. So
Uh-huh.
yeah,
True.
waiting on her is kind of the hassle there. But block that out.
Well, we
Don't even
know.
show her
Yeah.
that.
True. Well, thank you, Matt. Look, that was a good one. I
Heck
appreciate
yo,
that. Okay.
absolutely, absolutely.
Cool. Well, we're going to move on to the next segment, which is the quote of the day. And I have a quote for us, really short and sweet, but it really pertains to what we got going on in this episode, what we were talking about. So the quote of the day is, I do not have to pick a side. I am proud of all of me. And that is by Luke Whitehead. So, just like us, we don't have to pick a side. We're proud of both of our sides, I would say, right? We both biracial babies, but of course, you know, I mean, that's how I feel. Maybe Matt's like, actually, I do pick a side.
Yeah, I
Matt's like,
mean,
no, I'm
you
black
know,
only.
hey, it picked me. You know what I
So
mean?
true, I guess.
It picked me.
Well, whatever, nigga. Fuck you. I'm just kidding. Matt, thank you so much. You've been really, really great to have on the show today. At this time, Matt, do you want to give out some shout outs, or do you want to do a little bit of plug? You can tell people if they want to follow you on any social media. You don't have to either. That's up to you.
Oh yeah, I don't really do the social media, but what I will say is 2020 has been a tough year. If you're able to donate to somebody less fortunate, certainly find a charity. I'll shoot Kim quite a few to add to this, including Carol Robertson.
Okay.
But I'll put a few out there. But I think everybody take inventory of the blessings that you had in this year, and then share those when possible. So that will be my plug. So I'll send you a couple of things that I plan on donating to this holiday, and pay it forward.
That was beautiful. That was a great way to end it. Shout out to you, Matt. You
Power
ain't
to the
so
people.
bad.
I
You
know,
ain't
man.
so
You
bad.
be getting serious. That's there's one side, the other side, and the truth. You know what I'm saying? You only be getting one side.
Man, no, I love you, man.
Nah, you've always looked out. You've always
Yeah.
kept it real. So
I'm for you, Matt. I'm team Matt. I am. I will get
She
it.
right here giving me the evil eye right
You're
now.
like, you've been talking too
Yeah,
long.
she like you. Yeah, she she
Hi,
be
Sen.
she be needing the attention.
That nosy ass. Well, on that note, I think we're going to end this episode today. As always, guys, thank you very much for joining us on this episode today. I appreciate you. And for joining me on any of the past episodes. I appreciate you guys. We're coming into the end of the year. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I know I started this Kimbology thing during the quarantine, the podcast. So shout out to y'all for listening. I really appreciate your support. Oh, it's a doggy. Sorry, guys. Oh, it's Nova. Hi, Nova. You guys are watching the visuals. If you want to see a cute dog, as always, if you could leave us a comment on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts, that would be greatly appreciated. Subscribe, share this episode. And yeah, I appreciate you. Reach out to me on all the social medias, TikTok, Instagram. Send your Q&As to kimbologypodcasts@gmail.com. Hi, Nova.
Look, Nova. Look.
Hi. We got a puppy, y'all. So yeah, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. And I will talk to you guys next week. Thank you. Bye. Say bye, Matt.
Peace. Have a good one. Peace, love, and hair grease.
That's true. Kimbo out.
Brought to you by the Rick Dog Network. Well, shoot the damn dog.